You're talking about these products. We should say, you work for Wilderness Athlete, and you guys have Canine Athlete as
Mhm.
well, which has a supplement line. And the idea is with some of the products is, you're not going to take a dog that's generally going to live 12 years and make it live 20. Like that's not how this works. But what you're talking about is, the decline in ability is so evident in a dog because their lives are just so much shorter. And so
Right.
you're talking about extending those later years and creating a quality of life that's just better for the dog. It keeps the dog, more pain-free, more mobile, more doing the things that they love to do, and just bringing that prime age, kind of extending that prime age ability way longer in that dog's life.
Exactly. Can I tell you the story of how we came up with, or how we started New Dog, which is our multivitamin?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we tested all these products with Spallin, who's where I got Otter from, my protection dog. So Spallin breeds and trains protection dogs. And when we first started Canine Athlete, we wanted a big group of dogs to test on, a big group of ideally athletic dogs to test, hydrate, and recover. We were looking more for like endurance and agility during and after training. And we were looking for GI issues, right? Because when you give your dog something new, you want to make sure it's not going to make them puke, poop, all that. So that's what we were really looking for. But we also sent them a bunch of at that time, we were calling it multivitamin and joint. We didn't know what the product was going to be called. And so we sent them a lot of that too, and asked them to pick out some of the older dogs and some of maybe the injured dogs to give that product to. So that one is just a basic multivitamin to add back in all the nutrients and vitamins that they're not getting with a lot of dry kibble. And then also a joint supplement. So it's got glucosamine, MSM, all that. So they gave it to one of their key test dogs was my dog's grandmother. So it was definitely close to home for me. She was still living there at the ranch. She was one of the owner's personal dogs, and she was declining quick. She was 12 years old at the time. And they honestly thought she was on her last leg. She couldn't get up it was taking her a long time to get up. She wouldn't run around anymore. She was declining what they considered pretty quickly. And so they started feeding her mega doses of what is now called New Dog. And Kim called me and she goes, so we bought a puppy. We have this German Short-haired pointer for hunting. And she's 6 months old. And she says, I think it's a mixture of the puppy and your product, but I have a new dog. And I cried. I was so happy to hear that. And so we went and visited that summer. And so this is 6 months after this dog has been on this product, and we didn't know if she was going to even live that much longer. And I get there and I swear that dog, I have video of her racing around the backyard with that puppy. And so we've always said now, the key to living a long, healthy life is taking care of your supplements and keeping young people around you, or taking care of your vitamins, your minerals, your food, and keeping youth around, right? Always having someone to play with. And it's just this really cool story. And she continued on, and it was beautiful. She runs around. I have a really cool picture of her and Otter, 4 generations of my dog's family, all the girls all together. And Cayman looks beautiful. It's just spectacular. So we called it New Dog after her.
That's awesome. I want to talk about what's in that, but I want to back up. Is Otter a Belgian Mal?
She's 3/4 Malinois and 1/4 German Shepherd.
Okay.
So her grandma was a Belgian Malinois.
How does a mostly Belgian Mal get a name like Otter?
So they name all of their litters. They have themes. And so Spallin actually started in Africa. They were doing protection in Africa for Americans that were there for work and charity. And they were also doing really cool work with anti-poaching, which is the coolest. That's who you should talk to. That's a great podcast about dogs working with anti-poaching in Africa. But so they started there, and Otter was actually born in Africa, and she was the last litter in Africa. And so they named their whole litter off of North American animals because they were moving home that year. And so all of her siblings are bison, pika, what's the other ones? A bunch of North American animals. So she got the name Otter. a lot of owners, when they buy Svalin dog, change the name. You know, if they don't like that name, you can train them to have a new name within like a week.
Yep.
But she was 4 years old when I got her. I got her a little older, and she was Otter. So we keep Otter, and she's, yeah. That's
so walk me through the decision to get a 4-year-old protection dog.
So everyone, when you buy a protection dog, people look at it, I think, two different ways, and I think half of them look at it the wrong way. What you're buying, a lot of people believe that what you're buying is the lifespan of the dog. True. I think you're buying the training that went into the dog. And so I chose Otter because she actually ended up being she was their like trade show demo dog that they were taking to trade shows. And I travel constantly. And so rather than like a lot of their dogs will do great in crowds, or they'll do okay in airports and whatnot. But this dog has probably been on as many flights in those 4 years as I had. Right. So she was like ready to go. That drew me to her. Her personality. She was had already had a litter of puppies for Svalin. And so she was for a Malinois, she's the most chill Malinois you've ever met. She's fiercely loyal. The minute we locked eyes and she was mine. It was like a love at first sight deal. So I was actually excited to get an older dog.
That's interesting that you found, because we preach matching dogs to your lifestyle and your work schedule and your training commitments, and factor in a whole bunch of stuff other than I think these dogs are cute and I like to hunt pheasants or something like, to really get into it. And you actually found a younger middle-aged dog that had traveled and would be comfortable in the kind of situations that you're in all the time for work.
Yeah.
You don't hear that story very often.
No. And so many people, when I knew that I was going to get a dog from Svalin, they have all the dogs published on their website. And so I had looked through them all, and my friends were all excited for me. So they looked through all the dogs, and everybody was like, this one's 1.5 years, and it says he's fierce and he's got high energy, and you should get this one. He's a badass, And I'm like, no, I have 2 other dogs. At the time we were going through a renovation. So I knew that I needed a dog that could be totally fine with having construction workers in our house all the time. And she literally will like lay down on her bed. She's over there as construction workers are working and just watch them. She'll never bark. She'll never show aggression if she doesn't feel that she needs to. And whereas a younger or a male, females can be just as bad, but a younger dog or a more fierce dog, it wasn't what I was looking for. Some people it works, but I needed something that matched my level of energy and my ego. And I didn't need to like prove anything with my dog. And you put her on someone in a bite suit and she can definitely prove herself. So,
yep. So
it's
has she had to protect you yet? Has there been a situation where no? She's
bit plenty for me, but they've always been in bite suits.
Yeah.
The thing I believe in about Svalin, and why I think what they do versus what a lot of other companies do, or what people try and train Malinois and Shepherds for, they'll train to be these like aggressive bite dogs. But in reality, if they're obedient, like her, if they can go everywhere with you, and like, don't tell Svalin, they'll get mad at me, but she's off lead. Unless we're in an airport or in like at a trade show, she's never on a leash. And she's right by me at all times. If you have a dog that's that obedient, you're going to be comfortable taking them absolutely everywhere. Mm-hmm. If you're going absolutely everywhere with a 70-pound Belgian Malinois, who's going to mess with you? Yeah. Like no one ever. You're an idiot, right? And so the only thing she will do is when she doesn't like someone's vibe, which I think is so cool that she can do that. When she doesn't like someone, she will not listen to me as well. So like, if I say close, which means get right next to me and look the same direction I'm looking. One time there was a man standing behind me in like line somewhere, and she didn't like his vibe, I guess. And I said close, and she did it. She got right next to me, but she turned totally in the other direction and just stared at him, like looking back. And I was like, Otter, what are you doing? Like, come on, you're not listening. And then I realized she was keeping her eye on the guy behind me. And there was something about him. He looked fine to me. But there was something about him that she just didn't feel comfortable with him standing right there. So that's when I can tell for her that she's like sensing something's up. She just isn't quite as obedient. And it's pretty cool to be able to read her that way.
Don't you wish you could know what she's keying off of in that situation?
Well, I kind of do. I mean, I wish I could know. Yes, I wish I could look at her and know, but I've spoken at length with the owners of Svalin about how they train for this. And they actually train their dogs to bite and to be aggressive and to, protect when the when the guy in the bite suit changes his way of thinking. And when I tell this story, people are like, that sounds like BS. If I didn't witness it myself many times, I wouldn't believe it. And the time that really proved it to me, I was training with them and we had 3 dogs with 3 handlers. So I had Otter and then 2 other people had 2 other dogs. And they had 2 guys one guy in a bite suit. And he walks up to all 3 dogs and is petting them, playing with them, being loving, giving them water, and they're totally fine. He walks away. They try and trick him, they'll walk around, make sure that there's not some like pattern that they're repeating. And then what they train their trainers to do is to go to a really, really dark place. And when they explain to me the things that they imagine, I'm like, gosh, you must have dark dreams at night. Like you imagined what? But it's the things that bad guys are thinking. And so they train their trainers to actually go to that place and to think those thoughts about the person, the handler. And when I watched all 3 dogs key on to the same human at the exact same time, I believed it. Because there was the guy gave no physical, I saw nothing. I saw nothing change in this guy. He was just casually walking back and forth. All of a sudden, all 3 dogs were on him. Like couldn't keep him on the leash. They were so pissed off. It's fascinating. It has to do with there's key changes in body language that we can't pick up on, pheromones, and what I think is a crazy 6th sense that they have that we don't have.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. So if that person's not changing their body language, anything physically that they're doing, it almost has to be a body chemistry thing that's giving off a scent, right?
Yeah, it's scent and dogs, so they communicate with each other. And this is no science, right? This is just like me from what I've witnessed my dogs doing and Otter being protective of me. They communicate with each other non-verbally all day. And that's their only way of communicating. I mean, they can communicate verbally, but a lot of nonverbal. And so I don't know, there's something that they can, if you believe that there's like something that they can pick up on that's actually, somewhat telepathic. Or I know Otter senses when I'm anxious, and sometimes before I do. We've had conversations, like my fiance and I will be not even arguing, just like having a conversation in which I do become anxious later, and she'll start pacing around behind me. Like, and Steve will be like, you calm down. And I'll say, but why? I'm fine. Otter's stressed out. You need to chill. And I'm like, how? It's just, whether it's body language, pheromones, some 6th sense, it's fascinating. And super cool.
I think it's so tied in. I mean, I think the body language is a part of it. I think we do things that we aren't even aware of that they're picking up on. But I also think, we've had people on here who do really in-depth research on nose work with dogs and, breaking down, can they identify 1 part per million or 1 part per billion of a scent molecule or some kind of scent. And I always think about it from the perspective of, you take a coyote or a wolf out in the woods and you watch them and they're just covering ground so often. They're just trotting through. And, hunters know you shoot a deer, you gut shoot a deer, you make a poor shot on a deer and you leave it overnight. If a coyote crosses that trail, they're going to go get it, most likely, and start chomping on it. And you see this with bird dogs as well. When you knock down a pheasant, it runs away and it's wounded. Those dogs know the scent of a wounded animal versus the scent of an animal that's just trotting through. And when you think, obviously there's a lot of stressors going on there for those animals, but that coyote just cruising through the woods picks up that scent and knows it means something different than the 5,000 times it crosses a healthy, and so to think
Crazy.
and to think that a protection dog that's, coming from pedigrees, bloodlines that were developed over in Africa to run down poachers after they, speared a rhino or whatever they're doing over there, for that dog to just pick up on cues of people with nefarious intentions, it seems crazy and you want to attribute it to something like the sixth sense, like you said, but it's probably just a very well developed understanding of what that little chemical scent change means in your body.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like the tracking dogs that can track criminals, they can pick up on the bad guy versus all the other scents, all the other good guys because of the adrenaline and everything that guy's putting off. I think that it's probably the nose, and it's fascinating to me because I've never done any tracking or like shed hunting or anything with Otter. I would love to work with her on that and to see, because I'm sure she'd be great. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But that ability to do that is just, it's crazy. Could you imagine if we could like smell people's pheromones? I don't know if we'd want to.
No, I don't want to.
No, I'm good. I'm good with my dog being able to do it for me.
Yeah, I'm good with the amount of people that I like, the level I can smell people. I'm pretty solid with that.